The call came at 10:47 a.m. Sarah stared at her vibrating phone, then answered, her voice still half on the quarterly report.
He was stable. They said he was stable this morning.
She ran until the corridor bent toward his room. But the door was closed, and Linda stood in front of it like a locked gate.
You are too late. He passed 20 minutes ago.
Her voice had no give, no grief, only finality, and something sharper underneath.
And there's another matter. The will has been revised. Everything goes to Patrick.
George stepped forward, nodding, a thick envelope already in Linda's hand.
Your father signed it this morning, witnessed and notarized. You'll receive this.
3 hours before he died. He could barely hold a pen.
She took the envelope. It was heavier than paper. The hallway felt too long, too quiet, and her father was gone. She walked out of the hospital into a cold afternoon, the envelope clutched against her chest. The drive home passed in a blur of brake lights and silence.
He signed it 3 hours before he died. 3 hours. And she didn't even call me.
By the time she reached her apartment, the rain had stopped, but the cold had followed her inside. She dropped her keys on the counter and sank onto the sofa.
Linda's face when she said, "Everything goes to Patrick." That wasn't grief. That was satisfaction.
The envelope lay on the coffee table like a dare. She stared at it for an hour, her mind looping through every cold dinner, every sharp word, every time Linda had cut her out of a family moment.
Why a letter? Why not a conversation? He had months to tell me if something was wrong.
She reached for the envelope twice and pulled back both times. The seal held its promise, and that promise felt dangerous.
If Dad wanted me to know something after he was gone, there's only one reason he'd use a letter instead of his voice. Linda was in the room.
The thought landed like a stone in her stomach. She picked up the envelope and held it against her palm, feeling the edges of whatever paper was inside.
I'll open it. Whatever she wanted to hide, he made sure I'd find it.
She tore the seal, the paper splitting with a quiet rip, and slid out a single folded sheet. Sweetheart, check your cloud.
Check my cloud? That's it? No explanation, no love, just instructions.
Then the memory hit. 2 years ago, in her old kitchen, her father had handed her his phone with a wink.
I set it to back up to your iCloud. Linda doesn't need to know.
Why would I need your iCloud, Dad?
Just trust me. If something ever happens, you'll know where to look.
Sarah gasped back to the present, the note now shaking in her grip. Her father had planned for this. She rushed to her desk, flipped open her laptop, and waited for the screen to glow. The iCloud login page stared back at her.
I set it to back up to your iCloud. If something ever happens. Well, something happened, Dad. Now show me.
She typed her password with fingers that barely remembered how. The home screen loaded, and she clicked through to the backups folder. Inside voice memos, one file sat at the top, time-stamped the morning of his death. The title sent a chill through her.
If something happens. He named it exactly that. He was trying to leave a map.
Her mind flashed to his hospital room. The iPhone, always on the nightstand, angled away from the door. Linda never noticed.
He recorded it while she was in the room, didn't he? He waited until the last possible moment.
She plugged in her headphones, her own heartbeat louder than the room. The play button glowed under the cursor.
If he recorded over Linda's voice, if he begged them to stop, I am not sure I am ready for this.
She clicked. The waveform appeared, and after 2 seconds of static, her father's voice filled the headphones.
Sweetheart, if you are hearing this, it means I couldn't stop her.
Don't stop. Don't ever stop. Tell me everything.
She brought George this morning. Said I needed to sign a new document. I knew what they were doing.
Sarah's hand covered her mouth. His voice was thin, but every word a bullet.
The will they made me sign leaves everything to your brother. It isn't what I wanted.
Patrick gets everything. Dad didn't want this.
The image of Linda and George outside his door, whispering, flashed behind her eyes.
5 years ago, I filed a will that splits everything fairly. The lake house belongs to both of you. Find it.
Find it. He's telling me the truth is still out there.
The recording crackled. She heard a voice in the background. Linda, sharp and impatient. Then the file ended.
I have to make this right.
She pulled off her headphones, the silence heavier than his voice. She had a weapon. Now, she needed the courage to use it. She replayed the segment about the original will, pausing on every word. The recording was crystal clear, her father's voice, not a whisper of doubt.
He said, 5 years ago. He knew exactly what he was hiding from her.
The timestamp on the file sat like a crime scene marker, 9:12 a.m., 3 hours before his death. Linda and George had been in the room by 8:30.
They timed it perfectly. Waited until Patrick was gone, until I was at work, until he was too weak to fight back.
Her phone buzzed. A text from Linda. Stop this now.
She knows something's wrong. She's scared.
Sarah deleted the message without replying. Linda didn't deserve a warning. She opened her contacts and scrolled to Patrick's name.
If Patrick knew, he's part of it. If he didn't, he's about to lose everything too.
She pressed dial. The ringtone cut through the quiet apartment, each buzz a step closer to a truth that could break them both. Patrick slid into the booth across from her. Shoulders hunched, eyes scanning her face like he was bracing for bad news.
Sarah, what's going on? Mom said the will was finalized, that you just need time.
Time isn't what you need. I have something you need to hear.
She set her phone on the table and pressed play. The recording filled the space between them, thin and damning.
That's Dad. He's saying he was pressured. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know.
She told you the lake house was yours, didn't she? Did you ever ask why?
Number, she said. Dad wanted me to have it, that it was his gesture. She never said you were cut out.
Either Patrick is a better liar than I thought, or he's been just as played.
I'll search my place. Dad kept old files. If there's a copy of the original will, I'll find it.
Sarah nodded, but left her coffee untouched. Trust was still a currency she couldn't afford to spend. The next morning, Sarah entered George's office without calling ahead. The dark wood and leather smelled like old secrets.
Sarah, I wasn't expecting you. The will is already probated. There's nothing more to discuss.
There's everything to discuss. You rewrote his will hours before he died. I want the original.
The original was superseded. Your father signed with full capacity. I am bound by privilege.
Full capacity. He was dying. You and Linda stood over him until he signed.
George's hand drifted toward a stack of papers beside a shredder. Sarah's gaze followed, and something clicked.
He's already destroyed it, or he's about to. I'll find every copy that still exists. And when I do, you'll answer for this.
She turned and walked out, the glass door closing with a soft thud that felt heavier than a slam.
This isn't a family argument anymore. I need a lawyer, now.
By noon the next day, Sarah sat across from a probate attorney named Evelyn Cross, a woman who didn't flinch at the word contested.
I have a recording. My father's voice. He says the new will wasn't his wish. Is it enough?
Evelyn recommended a forensic audio lab. Sarah handed over the file that same afternoon, her father's voice reduced to waveform peaks.
I am asking science to prove what I already know. He was lucid. He was scared. And he wasn't alone.
3 days later, the report arrived. Voice match confirmed. No signs of duress, coercion, or editing. Robert had known exactly what he was doing. Sarah held the report to her chest, a sob breaking free. It wasn't just evidence. It was validation. That evening, Patrick knocked on her door holding a worn manila folder. Inside was the original will, dated 5 years earlier, his father's signature bold and healthy.
It was in a box marked tax returns. She never would have looked there.
Sarah unfolded the document. The lake house, the assets, the watch collection, split evenly. Her name, bold and unmistakable, next to Patrick's.
We file tomorrow, together.
The courthouse echoed with the morning footfall. Sarah placed the petition on the counter, and the clerk's stamp sealed the challenge.
The stamp felt louder than a gavel. Dad, I'm keeping my promise.
By late afternoon, the news had reached Linda. She appeared at Sarah's building as the streetlights flickered on, arms crossed like a locked gate.
You filed against your own mother. You think a judge will believe your drama over a signed document? The document you forced him to sign. There's a recording, Linda. His own voice. A recording? You're bluffing. You have nothing.
But her voice cracked on nothing, and Sarah caught it.
I have the truth. That's enough.
Sarah shouldered past her, climbed the stairs, and locked the door. Her phone buzzed. Linda, again. She deleted the message and dialed Evelyn. The court date was set for the 15th. The battle had begun. The courtroom felt colder than the hospital ever had. George's motion to suppress the recording came before the first witness was sworn.
This recording was made surreptitiously. While the decedent was medicated and vulnerable, it's inherently unreliable.
Evelyn rose without hesitation, holding the forensic report like a shield. She argued the expert verified voice, context, and absence of coercion. The recording was his dying declaration, not a trick. The judge examined the authentication certificate and the transcript. A full minute passed. Finally, he ruled. The recording would be admitted, subject to full playback during trial. Linda's knuckles were white. Her glare cut across the aisle.
We reserve the right to challenge every second of that tape. Sentiment doesn't equal legality.
Sentiment? He was begging for his legacy. That's not sentiment, it's truth.
The gavel didn't fall yet, but the first wall of Linda's story had crumbled. The real battle was about to start. The bailiff called her name. Linda walked to the stand like a woman arriving at a funeral. Composed, tragic, rehearsed.
I was with Robert every day of his illness. I never left his side. We talked about his wishes constantly. He told me he wanted Patrick to have the lake house. He felt Sarah was independent, strong enough without it.
Sarah's jaw locked. Every word was a grenade dressed in a sympathy card.
The signing was peaceful. He held my hand after. He said, "You've protected me through all of this." Protected him. You stole his voice and then tried to bury it.
Linda dabbed a dry eye with a tissue. The courtroom was silent, and for a terrifying moment, it felt like she was winning.
I only did what Robert wanted. I loved him.
She stepped down from the stand with the grace of a queen who hadn't yet noticed the uprising in her own court.
She thinks she's won, but she hasn't heard his voice yet.
The forensic audio expert took the stand, his lab coat still creased from the flight. Evelyn asked him to state his qualifications. He explained spectrographic voice matching, Robert's frequencies, rhythm, even his shallow breath pattern, all confirmed. The authentication report cited 0 signs of editing, 0 coercion markers. His final sentence was, Mr. Caldwell was fully lucid. Evelyn played the enhanced clip. Robert's voice, loud and steady, named the original will and pleaded for its protection.
Objection. The enhanced version is prejudicial.
Overruled. The judge's voice cut the air. Linda's composure cracked for the first time.
That's not prejudice. That's my father telling the truth.
The expert then detailed the background. A hospital monitor, beeping. Linda's impatient voice layered beneath Robert's. A collective breath held as the recording played again. She brought George this morning. The words landed like stones. The expert stepped down. His work done. Linda's act had no shield left. Patrick's name was called next. He walked to the stand, with the weight of every family secret pressed into his shoulders.
She told me it was what Dad wanted. I believed her. I didn't ask enough questions.
He described the morning of the signing. Linda's sharp instructions, George's rushed arrival, his father's silence.
I heard them arguing earlier. Dad said, I won't cut her out. Mom said he didn't have a choice.
That's a lie. He's confused.
The judge's gavel silenced her. One more outburst, and I'll clear the gallery. Linda sat back, trembling.
The original will was fair. I found it myself. Sarah deserves half.
He glanced at Sarah. In his eyes, the apology he couldn't yet say aloud.
He chose the truth. That must have cost him everything.
The cross-examination was brief. George tried to paint Patrick as bitter, but his honesty held. Linda's fury was now the loudest thing in the room. Sarah took the stand, with the recording stored on a drive in her pocket, as real as her father's handwriting.
He left me a letter with 2 words. Check your cloud. I logged in and found a voice memo he'd titled himself.
She described the hospital room, the iPhone angled away from the door, her father's desperation hidden in plain sight.
When I played it, I heard him say, "The will they made me sign leaves everything to your brother. It isn't what I wanted."
Evelyn requested the full playback. The court speakers crackled. Then Robert's voice filled the silence.
I am being pressured. This is not my last wish. Find the original will. It splits everything fairly.
Linda's face collapsed. Her carefully constructed martyrdom evaporated in the sound of a dying man's truth. George stared at his hands. He didn't object. He didn't move. When the recording ended, the courtroom was silent. Not a sob, not a shuffle. Robert had testified from beyond the grave. The judge set down his pen. The court will take a brief recess before closing arguments. The recess ended. The courtroom reassembled, and the air thickened as both lawyers rose for closing. Evelyn walked through the evidence like a tour guide, through a crime scene. The letter, the cloud backup, the recording, Patrick's corroboration. She held up the transcript where Robert's words were highlighted, and her voice caught only once, on the word pressured.
This is it. She's laid out everything. Now it's his move.
The decedent signed the will in sound mind, witnessed. There is no proof of coercion beyond a daughter's grief.
It was a weak wall. Even George seemed to know it, his voice trailing at the end. The judge listened without a nod, then folded his hands. The court will now retire to deliberate. The gavel struck once, a sound that seemed to vibrate through every chair in the room.
We wait. I've done everything I can. Now it's in his hands, and Dad's voice.
Patrick caught her eye. No words, just a shared breath held in the silence. The courtroom rose again. The judge returned with a folder, and a silence that felt like a held breath. He read from the paper without looking up. The deathbed will signed on the morning of Robert Caldwell's death is declared invalid for undue influence and lack of testamentary capacity.
Number. That's not possible. He signed it. I was there.
George grabbed her arm, but she shook him off. The judge's gavel cracked twice. The original will, dated 5 years prior, is hereby admitted to probate. All assets shall be divided equally between Sarah Caldwell and Patrick Caldwell. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, a sob she'd held since the hospital finally broke. The judge continued, now directing his gaze at Linda. This court further orders a referral to the district attorney's office for civil elder abuse investigation. Linda's face twisted, white and rigid. George slumped in his seat, already looking like a man who'd lost his license.
He did it. Dad wrote the truth in a memo, and a whole courtroom heard it.
The gavel struck once more, final and absolute. This court is adjourned. The words fell like a door closing on an old, dark room on the courthouse steps. Linda's voice cut through the noise, raw and venomous. She lunged toward Sarah before the cameras.
You destroyed me? You think a piece of paper changes what you are?
Before she could reach her, Patrick's arm blocked the path. His voice was quiet but unyielding.
It's over, Mom. It's done. Go.
Linda stared at her son, then at Sarah, her mouth tight. She turned and walked away, the crowd parting like water. Patrick reached into his bag and pulled out a polished wooden case, their father's watch collection.
I should have asked you. I should have protected you. I am sorry.
We have the lake house. We'll scatter his ashes together.
She took the box and let out a breath that felt like years. They stood together on the stone. sunlight warming the space between them.
No locked gates, no last-minute letters, just his voice, and now his ashes on the water.
The lake house sat quiet under the late afternoon sun, its windows reflecting the water like old memories. Sarah parked the car and just looked.
I used to think he'd be here forever, sitting on the dock, fixing that old reel.
Inside, the air carried the scent of pine and dust. Sarah stopped at the mantel, where a framed photo of their father still smiled beside a vase of dried wildflowers.
He put that photo there the summer he taught us to fish. He said it was his favorite smile.
Patrick reached past her and straightened the frame, his hand lingering on the glass. They walked through the kitchen, the old porch, and finally out to the back where the dock stretched into the glassy lake.
This is where he'd want to be. No hospital, no drama, just the water.
Sarah held the bronze urn against her side, while Patrick carried the watch box. They stopped at the end of the dock as the sun began its slow descent.
Ready?
Ready.
Sarah twisted the lid off the urn. A fine stream of ash caught the sunset light, glinting like gold. Together, they tilted the vessel. The ashes drifted onto the water, spreading in a slow, quiet bloom.
I am sorry, Dad, for not listening, for not fighting harder.
The words hung in the air, and the lake absorbed them with the ash. Sarah reached for his hand. They stood as the last particles disappeared into the darkening lake.
He's free now. From the pain, from her, from everything.
The sun slipped below the tree line, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple.
We'll come back every summer. Bring our kids one day.
He'd like that.
They didn't move for a long time, just held the silence, the water, and the man they'd both loved. Patrick squeezed her shoulder, then walked back to the house without a word. He knew this moment was hers. Sarah sat at the edge of the dock, feet above the dark water, and pulled out her earbuds. She scrolled to the recording, tapped play, and her father's voice filled the quiet.
Sweetheart, if you are hearing this, it means I couldn't stop her.
From the wooden case, she lifted his favorite watch, the vintage gold piece he'd worn at every family dinner.
You planned it, Dad. You knew she'd try to erase you.
The recording stopped, and the lake held its breath along with her.
I didn't just get the lake house back. I have your voice forever.
She smiled, a slow, genuine curve that had nothing to hide and everything to remember. She tucked the watch into her pocket, held the phone against her chest, and watched the stars appear. She stood up from the dock, the wood creaking under her weight, and walked back to the house one last time. She slid her father's phone into her bag next to the watch case. The screen still glowed with the memo file, a red heart beside the title. At the front door, she turned the key with a soft click. The house exhaled behind her, dark and peaceful. She walked to her car, the lake behind her, a sheet of silver under the rising moon. She placed the watch case on the passenger seat, buckled in, and sat still for a moment.
You'd be proud, Dad. We kept your promise.
The engine hummed to life, and the headlights cut through the dark. She drove away, the lake house shrinking in the rearview mirror, but no longer behind a locked gate. Behind her, the stars settled over the water. Ahead, the road stretched wide and empty. In her pocket, her father's phone weighed nothing and everything.